a super long time, over a month since I have sat down to film a video, but I wanted to make sure I got this video out. I wanted to introduce all of you to Ella. This is Ella here. It's actually nighttime. The other two are sleeping now, or at least in bed. They're more like chatting to each other. But I wanted, it's hard to catch a time when she is awake and not like cranky or the kids are not around. So I wanted to make sure I introduced all of you to sweet Ella. This is Ella Joy, and she is just so precious and we love her so much. So I wanted to go ahead and share with you guys her birth story and kind of share with you how all of that happened. So anyways, let me go ahead and share with you the birth story. It was a Friday. I had been feeling contractions with Ella since about 30 weeks. I felt stronger than I feel like Braxton Hicks contractions, so I was definitely expecting her to come pretty early. I shared that in my Vlogmas videos, which I never finished Vlogmas just because it was a really rough time. So I definitely was expecting her. The other two, Leah and Hunter, came at 38 weeks. Leah was exactly 38 weeks. Hunter was 38 weeks, 2 days. So I was kind of expecting Ella to follow in that path. So 38 weeks came and left, and she had not come. Then I was 39 weeks, and I had scheduled my follow-up appointment at 39 weeks and 1 day. And my midwife was totally shocked that I made it to that appointment because we were not expecting me to make it to that appointment. We were expecting me to have had her by then, just because I was having so many strong contractions. They weren't labor contractions, but they were pretty intense and still nothing. So I had that appointment Friday, and it was, like I said, 39 weeks, 1 day. So that day, it was in the morning. I went to my appointment, and the kids went with me to that appointment. They were really good. And I was having, after I left that appointment, I pretty much was having really strong contractions all day. With my other two kids, my water broke. I didn't really have like really strong labor contractions before going into labor. Like my water broke and I knew I was in labor. So with Ella, I was having really strong contractions where it kind of like I would have to stop what I was doing and kind of like breathe through the contraction. So they were pretty strong. So that was going on all day. Then at about 2 o'clock, I realized that they're getting closer together. So I text Chris because he works an hour away from where we live. And then the hospital is 45 minutes away from where I live. So he would have had to meet me at the hospital, and I would have had to find someone to drive me and all of that. So, and someone to get the kids. So it wasn't, I wanted him to not leave work, but kind of be mentally preparing. And I told him, I'm going to start timing the contractions. So I started timing them. They were getting closer together, but they were not super close together. They were about 10 to 15 minutes apart. And they stayed like that from 2 to, like, I was walking, I was doing everything, and they were still staying pretty far apart. So around 11 o'clock at night, they were still very far apart, but they were very intense. Like, they were really, really strong. And with my other two, I remember once my water broke, my contractions were fairly far apart, but they all of a sudden would get really intense, and I would go into, like, I would be in transition really fast. So I said, you know what, Chris, let's go ahead and go to the hospital, just because the drive is really far, and you know, just in case. So it was 11 o'clock at night. The kids were down. We were ready. So we kind of took our time going. I wasn't rushed, and we actually went to go. We had just put in an offer in a house, and we wanted to check the neighborhood out at night. So we had went driving in that neighborhood, and we took our time getting there. We took over an hour. I called my midwife once we were closer just to make sure she thought it was a good idea for me to go, and they gave me a go-ahead. So I get there. They start monitoring me, and they pretty much tell me I'm not in active labor, that my contractions were not consistent. My contractions pretty much stopped when I got to the hospital. So I'm like, they probably think that I'm crazy. So, which I'm sure they see all the time, but this is my third. I should not be going to the hospital when I'm not in labor. So I was pretty bummed. and they were monitoring me for a long time, and my blood pressure was really, really high, which I had never had that problem with the other two. I never had high blood pressure problems, but I think because I was further along and I had two other kids and I was really swollen and I just was really struggling. I had really high blood pressure. So they wanted to run some tests, and the midwife came and talked to me about inducing me, and I just did not want to be induced. I felt like when the baby was ready, she would come, and I just didn't want to be induced unless the baby was in danger. So, which, I mean, I know a lot of people have to be induced because of certain circumstances, but I wanted to make sure we were at that point before I was induced. So, they ran the test just to make sure the baby, Ella, was not in danger at that point. And I was not in danger because they said it could be very serious with high blood pressure. So they ran all the tests, and they said that it wasn't to the point where I had to be induced, but I would have to start going to the doctors more regularly because of my blood pressure being so high. And my blood pressure did go down. I think it was so high at the time because I was like, the adrenaline of thinking I was getting ready to have the baby, like your body kind of kicks into adrenaline mode. So I think that's part of why my blood pressure was high, and it did lower some while I was there, but it still was pretty high. So the midwife, I was already there for several hours because it was the weekend, so the test was taking a long time, and it was in the middle of the night. So we had already been there for a few hours, and my midwife, it actually was the on-call midwife. She actually was not my specific midwife. She kind of mentioned doing some natural things to try to induce me into labor, not necessarily breaking my water and starting me on Pitocin, but just starting doing some natural approaches to inducing me. And she said, you know, I had already been through a lot. She could tell I was really struggling. So she said, why don't I sleep on it and think about it and just let my body recover a little bit and then wake up and decide what I wanted to do. And I really was struggling. I even cried because I really did not want to be induced. I really felt like when the baby was ready, she would come, and my other two, I didn't have to make that decision. My water broke, and I'm very blessed for that because I know a lot of people do have to make that decision, and I just really did not feel like I was at the point where I had to be induced just because I was struggling. I felt like I wanted to push through, and I felt like when she's ready, she'll come. So she said, you know, I really think you should sleep on it because I can tell your body was in labor all day and there's a reason you came. So I would hate for you to go home and just be struggling and then you be in labor later on and all of that. So I decided to go to sleep, and probably an hour after I sleep, in my sleep, my water breaks. I feel it pop and it wakes me up, and I go into labor, and within we do natural approach to labor. I don't have medicated labors. I'm unmedicated, and we've been fortunate enough to do that. So I always walk around. So we were walking. I only lasted about a little bit, and then I told Chris that I had to go lay down. I had to go inside. So normally that means I'm in transition, but only about 45 minutes had gone by. So I didn't think it was that soon. So I'm like, oh my goodness, my body must be really tired from the day. But shortly after, I told him that I felt like I had to push within, that was about 15 minutes after. So an hour had gone by. They had everything ready, and then 15 minutes later, 30 minutes, they set everything up, and then I felt like I had to push, and I was pushing for about 15 minutes. So in total, everything was an hour and a half from when my water broke to when I had Ella. It was an hour and a half. I pushed for 15 minutes and I had her. So definitely the fastest labor. Definitely glad that I did not go home, because if I would have gone home, we may not have made it to the hospital. So I'm very thankful that the midwife suggested that I let my body rest, and I'm very thankful. I go to a very, very good practice, and she was very firm with me, but also very kind. So I was very thankful for her. She did a great job, and I was thankful for how everything turned out, that I didn't have to make the decision, and that Ella came when she was ready. So I was so thankful for that. So she was born December 16th, and she was born exactly 8 pounds, and I believe 20.5 inches, I believe. So yes, she is a joy, and we love her so much. That is why she's Ella Joy. So the kids have been doing really well. Definitely, I'm going to do like a video transitioning to 3 kids because that's for a whole nother video. But life has just been crazy, obviously, since it has taken me a month to film this. Ella is now over a month old. She turned a month this past week. So time definitely goes by quickly, and we are just loving her, and but struggling as well. Struggling in the joys. So anyways, that is our birth story for her. I'm happy it turned out the way it did, and I'm so thankful for that because my body was definitely very tired. So she definitely came right when I needed her to. And it actually was perfect timing because of when she was born. I shared in a few of the Vlogmas videos that I was worried about when she was going to come because of Chris's car accident. I wasn't sure if he was going to have enough time off, but because of when she was born, I was able to have someone with me between Chris and my mom, someone with me for 2.5 weeks, which was such a blessing with my third. So that was really awesome, and I'm so thankful for that. So anyways, that is our birth story, and I look forward to including Ella in more of our family videos, and definitely sharing some more baby related videos coming soon, hopefully as long as she allows me to. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.